Howdy, all from snowy Buffalo. We finally actually got some snow, so we're living up to our reputation, Russ.
Yeah, no snow here.
Yeah, well, global warming. It's a
Well,
beautiful.
I was on Winnipeg radio today, and I heard the weather report. It was like 30% chance of snow today, which means it's a great day, and then like 100% chance tomorrow.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's balmy. It's only -7 Celsius here.
Oh, there you go.
So that's what in the high teens or low 20s
it's about
Fahrenheit.
15.
Yeah. Yeah, no thanks. Hardy people up there in Manitoba.
Yes, they are.
Okay, Russ, it was funny because last week the talk was that Ohtani, the dual threat Japanese star, the Japanese Babe Ruth as they call him, was shunning off all major markets. That he didn't want to go to New York or Boston. He didn't want to go to a big market where there'd be a lot of attention. Well, he just signed with the LA Angels of Anaheim. That's just what I call a small market.
But it is a small market. If you think about it,
it's LA.
It's not. It's not. It's a small market. If you think about how we view the Angels and how the Angels are viewed around baseball, it's a much smaller market. I understand the proximity is not that far from Los Angeles, but it's far enough that I've been in LA and you don't even know Anaheim exists. So I think it is a small market. Now, the things that bother me is when everybody's saying he's the next Babe Ruth, they're not even saying Japanese Babe Ruth, they're saying Babe Ruth. And, I always have a big problem with that because unless he's going to win 20 games and hit 714 homers, he's not Babe Ruth. Nobody's the next Wayne Gretzky. Nobody's the next Babe Ruth. But
is he grossly out of shape too?
No. Well, Babe was in shape.
Babe was not grossly. Later in his career, he was.
Yes.
But see, that's the thing. People don't realize. For people who just know Babe Ruth from the candy bar and from the fat guy who promised home runs to some kid in an orphanage, he was basically, if he had not taken up the bat, if he had not been a power hitting outfielder with the Yankees, he probably would have been a Hall of Fame pitcher. He was he had great statistics for the 4 or 5 years he pitched with the Red Sox.
He matched up against Walter Johnson and beat him.
Yeah. So I mean. I think they're just saying he's a dual threat, and there hasn't been.
And say that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just say that. But the other thing that sort of has me thinking weirdly about this is, so they're talking about Albert Pujols on the MLB Network, and short of saying that he's old, fat, and slow, that he's going to possibly lose at bats. And my thought is, are you still a major leaguer if you're a part-time DH? Think about that.
Well, no, I see. The thing I heard about Pujols was that he's really getting in shape.
Yeah. Like every old guy who's ever said, "I'm in the best shape of my life."
He's losing.
So he's starting to take his contract seriously.
Yeah, he's losing a ton of weight so he can still play in the field. And I'm thinking to myself,
training with Palmero.
You're making $30 million. Like, you weren't doing this before. What kind of friggin' bum are you if you're not doing it?
The thing is, think about this too. He played 6 games at first base last year. Does it really matter if he's thinner? He's slow. His reflexes aren't the same. Now, granted, he hit 23 homers. He hit 100 RBIs. But if he starts playing the field, his numbers will go down. I guarantee it.
I think Big Papi played more games at first base during interleague than Albert Pujols. And we're talking about a guy whose knees were so shot that he could barely run the bases.
And he hit into like a record number of double plays last year, Pujols. So, but that's what I'm saying. This is why I dislike the DH, because he's about a year from really realistically being out of baseball. If he didn't have this contract, he probably would retire even this year because of the kind of player he's been. But now, because of the DH, his career gets prolonged, and we get to watch him like drastically age and deteriorate.
Yeah, and let me just throw one more little baseball thing here, because the winter meetings are starting next week. So in the pre-show, we'll probably be talking about trades and stuff like that, because it's just out there.
If you don't like baseball, tough.
Yeah, I mean, the Miami Marlins have started to, tear themselves asunder. The Stanton trade is going to happen anytime soon, but they traded D. Gordon, an all-star second baseman, to the Mariners, Which the strange thing for that is, Russ, is that they have an all-star second baseman in Robbie Cano. So are they moving Cano? Are they using Gordon as a piece for a future deal? The deal doesn't make sense other than the fact that that the Marlins are getting rid of their assets.
I'll tell you what this reminds me of. When the Mets traded Lenny Dykstra, and we all know why, we don't have to get into it, but they traded Lenny Dykstra for Juan Samuel, who was also an infielder. And they made Juan Samuel a center fielder, and he was a disaster. Yeah. To say he was a disaster was probably being nice. But that's probably the plan. They're going to probably stick him out in the outfield, and it's kind of dumb. But I want to talk about the potentially –
it's not happening.
Misguided, underhanded thing if Giancarlo Stanton ends up with the Yankees.
It's not happening. It's not.
You don't know that, so we have to talk about it.
It makes no sense whatsoever. Let's trade for a trade for a $29 million outfielder when we have a guy who hit 8 home runs less, who's making less than $1 million.
Nothing is impossible with the Yankees, so it's worthy of talking about. And I think that Derek Jeter starred for them and Brian Cashman was his GM makes it noteworthy.
I think this is Brian Cashman doing a little bit of favor for his old buddy Derek, and it's not going to happen. Giancarlo Stanton's going to end up with the Giants or the Cardinals or somebody like that. It makes no sense whatsoever. Maybe it's to piss off the Mets because the Mets don't have enough to trade for Giancarlo Stanton. Anyway. Oh, did we lock up there for a second?
No, I'm just not saying anything.
I have nothing to add. I
got nothing to add. That was just ridiculous.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, December 8th, 2017.
I'm Peter Tessier from Winnipeg.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Well, some news out of Florida. It's with the Board of Governors meeting. We talked about a few things yesterday. And today, the figure, and these are not etched in stone, but every year around this time, we'll get an indication of what the salary cap might be. And that came out today. And a little bit of a surprise because there was an expected increase in revenue based on the Vegas franchise, based on, it seems to be a pretty good year for the NHL. But currently the cap is at $75 million. And the indications are, and Pierre LeBrun reported that if the Players Association decides not even go with this escalator clause, if it's just zero, the cap could go up by $3 million to $78 million. But if they take the full 5% escalator, which would mean a corresponding increase in escrow, the cap could go up to $82 million next year.
Okay, but wait.
Yeah.
Did we just not read the report where it said the players' escrow for the second quarter is 11.25%? So these are artificial numbers we're talking about if the players have to still put that money aside. Just imagine, Peter, that your boss said, hey, things are going okay here. Really, we got a lot of revenue coming in, but we're going to pull 11.25% just to kind of make sure it keeps happening. And if we get there, you'll get your money back. Don't worry.
Yeah, but you might. I mean, they negotiated that deal.
No, I know that. But we're talking about raising the cap, and the players don't even know if they're getting that money back.
Well, but the thing is, Russ, that if the league is being right now the indications are that the league is going to be. I think the figure was the league could make upwards of $5 billion this year.
Yeah, it was
4.85, something like that. If that happens, then they're getting back the escrow. It's the escrow.
If that happens. There's still a lot of season left. We don't know.
Right, but the escrow is only being held in abeyance based on the fact that if the league doesn't make what they think, what they project or what they expect, that then they have that money to balance the books.
Right.
It balances the revenue sharing between the players and the owners. That's what it is. That's all it is. So
but here's the thing, Peter. Again, if I'm a player, if I see the league is saying we're going to have record revenues, why are you pulling 11.25% from me now? It makes no sense.
The league is predicting record revenue.
Yeah, that's the point. That's why I want to point out these are predictions. Just like I've done sales forecasts. I'm sure you've done sales forecasts, Peter. And I think we all could admit when we've done sales forecasts, sometimes we get it wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why
we certainly do sometimes.
Yes. And that's why some people end up unemployed like me for a while.
Right.
But see, that's the thing. I mean, the PA is probably, I mean, remember, they negotiated the percentage with the league this year. I think they negotiated at like 1.5%. So that's why we got to 75 million. More than likely, they're not going to negotiate to go to 82, especially with, and this is always a factor, based on the free agent class that's coming up. There's not a ton of big time free agents other than, say, John Tavares and a couple wingers. There's not a bunch of big time free agents, which would lead me to believe that the PA is going to say, okay, well, we'll negotiate a slight increase to let these guys get their money, but we're not going to go hog wild. They're going to go hog wild next year when you've got Doughty and Carlson and Ekman Larson and all these other guys.
If they make it that far.
Right.
And that's the kicker, right? This is the thing that I think, the player, the NHLPA has to be careful about when they decide to use the escalator. Because if they're betting on the fact that, oh, well, this is better for us to move the cap up because we've got a bumper free agent crop, things change really quick.
They do.
And just remember 2 years ago when Stamkos was, almost 2 years, Stamkos was going to come in and that was going to change the way things go. Everyone's locking them up because they recognize the value in locking players up. Connor McDavid's locked up before he's locked up, like before he even sniffs free agency. Right. I mean, not that they were ever going to let him go, but you're going to take younger players, and they recognize, and teams are recognizing it's better to start paying them from 21 on to 28 or 29 than it is to start paying them at 28 on.
Right.
And you're seeing now the class of free agents that come out when they're older aren't guys who can command $6, $7, $8 million a year that much anymore. GMs have wised up. It's better to pay them when they're younger. They figured that gap out. So, for Doughty, what's Doughty going to be, 28?
Yeah.
28. So, that's probably right at the cusp of.
He'll be the exception. He will get his money.
He'll get his money, but and he's one of the few. But if you're LA, do you even want to let him?
You don't, but he might want to just sniff around like Stamkos did.
I mean, remember, Stamkos didn't sign until June 25th or 26th, 5 days before he became an unfettered free agent. He went to that 5-day window to be able to talk to other teams.
Guys like to be courted, and I think Drew Doughty just wants to be courted. That's what I think's going on here.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. That 5-day window is more. It can be just as much of a okay, I'm worth what I'm getting here. They're not ripping me off. Right. I feel good about me. Everyone's told me how awesome I am. Okay,
I had a few flights on a private jet and had a few meals out of it, and nice hotel accommodations.
I don't want to leave the LA area. I don't want to leave Tampa.
I had a lobster in the finest restaurant in Toronto. There you go.
Yeah.
But I mean that
exists.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's the thing here. So I think that the PA is going to balance things out here, but I think there's a possibility that they don't go to the 5%, but that they go to 80 million. That's a $5 million increase. And if you look at like some of the teams that we cover, I mean for the Leafs, if they go to $80 million, there is a reasonable chance that they will sign James Van Riemsdyk, because then they have five.
I think that's fair. I do think you're right about that. I look at the other side, though, as you know, and I think there'll be more teams upset that they'll have to reach the floor, because the floor will be a pretty high number now.
Yeah, I mean,
George McPhee's not liking that too much.
Right.
Well, I mean, George McPhee's got 9 unrestricted free agents. This is going to force him to sign players to long-term deals because
some players, anyhow.
Right. I mean, he's probably going to have to sign a guy like Marchessault to a deal because
he's got no choice.
Right. But I mean, they signed Braden McNabb to a 4-year deal, and I mean, Braden McNabb's I think a decent depth defenseman, but
it looks like. Sorry, Mike.
Go ahead.
So it looks like the cap floor this year was $55.4 million.
Right.
So if we're talking about a cap floor that's over $60 million. let's see how many teams will dislike that. I'm going to look up on Cap Friendly.
Well, I'll tell you one thing.
You can look it up.
I'll tell you one thing that'll happen. The Arizona Coyotes will trade for a contract like a Mark Savard, Pavel Datsyuk type.
Zach Bogosian.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. You know, see, enjoy the golf in Tempe, and enjoy your stay on LTIR for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Very. Matt Molson. Matt Molson might be a commodity that the Sabres could try.
All right. So here are teams with a lot of cap space right now. The Arizona Coyotes, they're at $58 million. So they would have to spend more. Carolina Hurricanes at 59 would have to spend more.
But not necessarily, Russ. That's the thing. You're talking about cap dollars. If you trade for a player like Matt Molson, the cap hits 5. The money is 3. So they're not spending.
That's fine, but if they're actually going to sign somebody like Larson or whatever, they're going to be spending more money.
Well, yes, and that's in the situation that that organization is in, when they're not making.
Honestly, I don't know what the number is going to be, but I think the cap floor should go up to something like 65.
Well, I mean that would require a new agreement on a new CBA because they're not. There's that amount. They're determined if the cap floor is here, the cap ceiling.
The cap floor is 59 this year, and it goes to 85 million or 82 million. You're going to see a cap floor of about 62, I think, right?
Exactly. It's about a $20 million difference.
62 would only affect Carolina and Arizona. Nobody else. Everybody else is over.
And there are enough bad contracts out there. I mean, hell, the Florida Panthers could trade Roberto Luongo even if he's done for his career and find somebody that might be interested in taking on that contract because people need the cap hit.
Yeah.
Marian Hossa.
Marian Hossa.
Because 3 teams are without cap space, but one of them has $5.5 million on LTIR that they could use in the Leafs. So it's like this is like a weird time we're living in.
This is why and that I just mentioned this and we'll move
Minnesota's
on.
got over almost $7 million that way, Mike.
No, that's because Zach Parise is on LTIR.
Yeah.
But I mean the Leafs can add a $5 million player at the deadline this year because Nathan Horton is on LTIR.
Mm-hmm.
There are 6 teams that I counted quickly that have $3 million or more in LTIR.
Okay, let's move on because there's a couple other things coming out now. After the show yesterday, the Gary Bettman came out and made a bunch of statements regarding Seattle. It does sound, and the indications are that Seattle is on the track to being the next expansion team. Now, there's no guarantees of anything. We're a few years away.
I mean, I think they had – look, people knew that I was questioning Las Vegas. I'll question Seattle less because of it being a great sports town. And they have Bruckheimer now, who they just added.
Bonderman and Bruckheimer.
That changed everything, right?
That changed everything. Bruckheimer's been wanting a team. He plays hockey himself. And so now I have a different opinion of it than I did even from 2 days ago when Bruckheimer wasn't a part of this group. So that's a big deal.
Yeah. But they came out with a set amount, $650 million. That's a 150 increase on Vegas. But that's
that could be problematic, as we talked about yesterday.
But that's 3 years down the line, so they can save up. They can cut their coupons and save up for that.
On that note, though, that fee. Because I don't think we knew that during the show yesterday, did we? We didn't know it was $650. So I put a tweet out yesterday, and Jan Levine responded to it, and he made some sense. But the issue is what between the Vegas franchise and now? Because the price doesn't matter in 2021. The price is set now. So you've decided the value of a franchise in Seattle is $150 million more valuable.
Right.
Than to buy one for Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
At the time of awarding the franchise with that $500 million check to the NHL, there was no professional sports competition in Las Vegas.
Right.
Teams, sorry, there's no NFL, no NBA, no MLB.
Right.
Now they've got 8 games a year of the Las Vegas Raiders coming whenever that happens.
Next year, I think.
Right.
Okay.
2 years.
In Seattle, as I said yesterday, you're now against the Seahawks, the Mariners, the Sounders, the Huskies, and the Squirrels of the Pacific Northwest. But your value is worth $150 million more. I don't understand it.
It's not the market. It's the fact that Vegas was a success. And because Vegas was a success and the league is making more of a profit, now you look at the value of the franchises, and the value of the franchises have increased. Now, I don't know if that's for real, because I also think that they're doing that because they want to increase the values of the existing franchises. If you look at the whole situation with Carolina, that owner who bought 51 or 52%, he bought it for half of $500 million, 225 to whatever.
Probably should have bought it in Bitcoins, but that's probably
right. But when he purchases the other 48%, which he has the option to do, he may be purchasing it by buying off the debt of the owner of the previous owner. So in numbers, it's $500 million, but in the pocket of the NHL, it's not $500 million. In the pocket of Carmanos, it's not $500 million.
The numbers that came out later on yesterday said he bought 52% at $480 million, and then the remaining 48 was an agreed upon amount of $550.
So he's paying $1 billion. He's paying over $1 billion.
So somehow it read. Now I can't remember. Now it was either LeBrun. It was someone. I'm not going to say they're wrong. I'm just going to say it's one of our main guys who are down there right now, who threw those numbers out, and maybe they said you're paying 48% of 550.
Yeah, right? I think that's what it is.
But because there's no way you're valuing the Hurricanes as much as the Leafs are. No. So there's something screwy in the way those numbers were presented. But I mean, that threw a lot of people for a loop yesterday.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to say, Peter, it would be the same as if White Castle opened up in Winnipeg. Whatever they charge for a White Castle in Brooklyn, they're going to charge the same in Winnipeg, even if they don't know if it's going to be a success.
Yeah, but they're going to charge more for Alka-Seltzer after you go to White Castle. Okay. The one thing that was interesting, I listened to some of the Canadian talk shows this morning, and I'm pro Quebec City. I love the Nordiques being there. They were a team that I love to hate when they played, the Habs or played the Leafs or played the Sabres. I thought it was good for the rivalry, and they were an exciting team at times. So I would like to see them go back there. But Gord Miller from TSN said something interesting regarding the prospects of Quebec. They built the building. The building's already there. The Canadian dollar is a factor, and the Canadian dollar is at about, I think, 70. It's like 29, 30%, something like that. It's like a dollar American is $1.30 Canadian. So that's the stronger Canadian dollar would make it easier for that Quebec core group to buy the team. And you're talking about probably like $800 million Canadian if it was right now. But Gord Miller brought up the fact that Pelado, the owner of that group, was part of the Quebec separatist movement, that wanted Quebec to separate from Canada. Right. That threw Canada into an economic downturn, and a lot of these owners lost lots of money back in the day because of that. And he thinks, and he has spoken to some owners in the league that say they would never get the stamp of approval to Quebec City because of that factor. So I'm like, okay, but why would you spend the money that you spent on building a brand new building if you knew that was going to be a hurdle to getting a team back in the NHL? That's
okay. So I know of a very large company I know professionally the CEO and their second in command, and they're both French Canadian, and they'd been involved in this. And originally, when the rumor before the stadium was going to be built, he told me, he goes, if it's not these guys doing it, our company name will be on the stadium. And it ended up being Quebec Corps. So that was out. But does the NHL not have a provision of a certain amount of personal money that has to be used to buy a team? Because the NFL, you can't have a company buy it.
Right.
NFL has to be personal wealth. You've got to have $1 billion or be able to get $1 billion or whatever it is.
Well, I mean, if that's the case,
because how many companies how many corporate-owned teams are there? Yes, the team is a corporation as its entity, but how many corporations own a team in an NHL market? And
well, I mean, the thing with Toronto is it's Bell, it's Rogers.
Yeah.
Who own an equal percentage, and I think it's about 35 to 30, maybe upwards of 40%. But Larry Tannenbaum owns 20% of that, so that might be
the provision there.
Yeah, I don't know if there is one. I'm just asking because in this case, they've got to bring a very wealthy person in Quebec to the table or outside of Quebec to get into this.
Yeah,
that's sort of what I'm curious about. What's that, Russ?
I was going to say, I'll tell you what my feeling is. I think my feeling is they built that place because they felt like, you know what, we'll just wait out the NHL. They'll come calling when a couple of franchises start having trouble, and we'll get one, regardless of these owners liking somebody or not. If they're in a situation where they have to go somewhere, and they have to go somewhere, and I think that's what they're looking at.
And then,
to that sentiment, you go back to 2010, 2011. If Winnipeg didn't have an owner group partnered with the richest man in Canada,
right,
and a suitable arena,
right,
they convinced, and Seattle did that. The Thrashers are in Seattle,
absolutely, overnight,
absolutely, right? Like it wasn't even a question, right? So there's no Winnipeg Jets. So if anything's happening, they're going to take the Winnipeg Jets approach, the Mark Shipman, David Thompson approach. Build your brand around it. Get the thing, bring in concerts, bring in events, you get your other revenue streams going because you're going to need them anyways.
Right.
And be patient.
And
work the channels. Because that's really, if what Gord Miller said is true, and there's good logic there. They're going to need that group is going to need to mend some bridges.
Yeah, and I think just as importantly, the things I've heard regarding like Montreal's, because Montreal, not anybody has a territorial block on teams moving one place to the other. That's been proven with the whole second team in Toronto stuff that the Leafs never had a territorial block on that. But Montreal seems to be okay with the fact that Quebec would move, that a team would come into Quebec. In fact, I think it would probably, it would be a great thing in terms of boosting, interest and sales and things of that nature. So there's no problem there. It's just right now, I think the problem is that Bettman is making sure that the new ownership with Carolina is going to keep that team there. And the only thing I think that Quebec is right now is sort of the stick and carrot with teams like Florida or maybe the Islander situation with the building there. I mean,
Arizona got brought up yesterday, and Bettman basically said, "Yeah, they're working on an arena deal." How long are they working on it for?
Well, and
they have to have one.
And I heard I think it was Pierre LeBrun say that the patience amongst some of the owners regarding the Arizona situation is wearing thin, and if it's not taken care of within say a year, then there are options out there now. Not just, Seattle won't be ready for 3 years, but this Houston thing. I mean, that's the thing with Quebec. All of a sudden, Arizona to Houston geographically makes a lot of sense. He keeps them in the West. It keeps them, they move divisions with Dallas, but it makes more sense for that.
It's not an expansion team. It's sort of like a tester. We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And now on this thought, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Mr. Murray Edwards.
Yes, that was the next thing I was going to bring up.
And he said, not looking good.
Now Elliot Friedman asked him today in Florida whether the team was up for sale, and he said no. But he said, the ownership group, because it's multiple owners, and Edwards, I think, has the highest percentage. Yeah. He lives in England apparently, and a lot of the ownership group is Alberta based, but they're getting older, and it's possible that within a few years the team could be up for sale. And if they don't get the building that they wanted, they can't compete with Edmonton, because Edmonton's getting concerts and things of that nature because it's a brand new building and the Saddle Dome is 30 years old. Then it's realistic that Canada could lose a team more.
No, I think they would go to Quebec. I think I think the NHL would rather see that team go to Quebec than out of Canada, because I think if it went out of Canada, there'd be another massive scream coming out of
insurrection.
There would, but you know what? There's the Quebec play, right? We'll take anything. It's just a matter of who's up. But the other thing is,
don't you agree, Peter? I mean, I don't think the league wants to dwindle the amount of Canadian teams. Really.
No, I don't either. But I mean, the other thing is that at a certain point in time, if things get really bad in Calgary, well, we just want to. We'll still own the thing. We just want to put them in Quebec City, and we'll get a better lease from them.
Right.
I mean, there's all sorts of avenues, right? And with Brian Burke, and I to this day, because I was in Vancouver when he said this back in, I think it was 1997 or 98, the Canadian assistant plan was in place. It was the first round of this, and he said, all it takes is one phone call, and we can sell this team. And if Burke's still in Calgary, he's letting what's his face, Ken King be the public mouthpiece. But Brian Burke is heavily involved in anything that Calgary's doing away from the city or something like that. He always has been in that capacity, and he always will be.
I always look at it. I'll tell you what this situation reminds me of. It reminds me of the Brooklyn Dodgers, because the Brooklyn Dodgers didn't leave New York because there wasn't money and there weren't fans and it was all about deals. Yeah. And at the end of the day, there was an unholy deal by this guy named Robert Moses. And it sounds like the same thing is happening there, where all of a sudden the fans are going to be undermined by this deal.
Yeah, they wanted to force the Brooklyn Dodgers to move out of Brooklyn and play in Queens.
Right.
And they refused to do that because they had a plan, and they ended up moving to Los Angeles because they were sick of being dictated to by Robert Moses. Right. I mean, in this situation, there's one deal that the Flames want. There's another deal that the city wants. They're battling over it.
It reminds me of it. It does.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, I can't conceive of the fact that they're actually going to move out of Calgary. But I think that right now,
anything's possible when it comes to money, Mike. That's the thing.
Yeah, I think this is. I mean, right now we're in threat mode. We're in okay, if you don't do this right now, we're going to do this. But I think we're years away from it coming to a head. But I don't think there's any. I don't think there's not budging. There's no movement on either side right now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just touch on a couple games last night. Russ, I don't know. Did you watch any of the Penguins Islanders game?
I did watch some of it, and this was a game where the Islanders came back, tied it, and then lost in OT because, again, they don't have great goaltending. It's just matching up 3-on-3 against the Penguins in OT is really a mismatch for the Islanders. But this was a game they came back because of their goal scoring, because they usually lose leads and a lot of times don't come back like that. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, these are regular season 1-point games that you're getting. I can't feel great about these points that I'm getting as an Islander fan, other than, yes, I may make it to the playoffs. But the minute these games turn into we're playing them out, they're going to have a problem, because they are going to lose. I mean, and again, what I said snarkily yesterday, how many goals are they going to give up? 5, and they gave up 4.
Well, my nominee of shift of the night was Matthew Barzal in overtime. He gets knocked into the net, knocks the net off the moorings, but the play is going the other way, so the referees don't blow the whistle.
Right.
He comes back, scrambling back to get back in the play, and then he runs into John Tavares and almost knocks Tavares out.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. The Islanders' goaltending is going to kill them. I mean, maybe not now, maybe not keeping them out of the playoffs, but I don't think it's goaltending that they can depend upon. And but the thing is, like we said yesterday, I don't see an option out there of them being able to trade for somebody who can improve over Grice and Halak. So, if they trade, for example, they trade for Robin Leonard from Buffalo, is that an improvement on either one of them?
No.
Yeah. So, Peter, the Panthers and the Jets. Now, I watched some of this game.
Oh, actually, you know what? One other thing.
Go ahead.
Because Tristan Jarry's new in the NHL game, I felt like his last 2 goals weren't great either. So right now the Penguins are a little more susceptible than they probably will be when Matt Murray's back in games like this, where they're going to give a few up because they've got a rookie goalie in there.
Right. And speaking of rookie goalies, Eric Comrie plays for the Jets yesterday. The Panthers won 6-4, but I was focused on the other end of the ice because James Reimer is horrendous. And the only reason I think that the Panthers didn't, win by a lot more was, again, Reimer is not playing well. And Bob McKenzie this morning on TSN said, there's a recognition out there that the Panthers right now are looking for goaltending help. And it's not that they're looking for a backup to fill behind Reimer. They're looking for somebody who they think can take over for Luongo because they're not happy with Reimer. Now, this is the funny thing. The group that brought Reimer in was the analytics group. And everything that they did, Dale Talon is moving away from those moves. Every single one.
Yeah. The whole thing with Florida and the joke that came out, the computer boys and stuff, I was thinking about this today when I was at the gym this morning. I don't know why. It just popped into my head now because obviously the Jets played them last night. And I was thinking, I would love to go back and look at, if you could, because it's usually on the websites, is look at what Florida's hockey operations staff was 5 years ago. What were they spending on their staff? And are the idea that it's the analytics guys not so much about player personnel, but about efficiencies for other things, right? And reduce your overall expenses by paying this. It wasn't that they were brought in to figure out how to build a team, but to find efficiency so they didn't have to spend as much money on all the outside resources of players to build the team. You know what I mean? It's a bit of a difference. I don't think we can pin everything on those guys that every move is done because of them.
Sure.
I think they're a cog in the machine. And Viola's machine is he's looking for mass efficiencies to trim down his expenses. And this probably makes a lot of sense to his mind, is that analytically speaking, I can cut out $250,000 of personnel expenses, just throwing numbers out, by hiring these 2 or 3 guys. I don't know. It's just something that I was wondering about. But that game last night, Reimer didn't play well, but he played well enough at the key points because he stopped a lot of stuff that normally would have gone in. And give him credit. I think Kyle Connor's probably a little ticked off today.
Russ, the Flyers win again.
They did.
4-1 over the Canucks. Now, we were talking before this Western Canada road swing, and they swept Western Canada. It's not easy to do Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, and sweep, but they did. And going into this trip, it was Dave Haxtell, let's count the days till he gets fired, even though Ron Hextall said we're not going to let him go for the rest of the year or potentially beyond. Well, now they've won 3 games in a row. Is the heat off of Dave Haxtell?
The heat is off right now, and I think it was going to be off of Hextall probably for most of the year unless something kept happening because of what Hextall said. But I don't know if all the heat's going to be off Dave Haxtell because – again, if you watch the breakdown of that game, Nolan Patrick played 6 minutes and 38 seconds, 40 seconds of even strength ice time.
Mm-hmm.
Konechny had 11 minutes total, but I want to say it was 7 minutes of even strength ice time. And I was on a show this morning and they said, well, it's all part of experience. Guys have to learn. I am of the belief guys do not learn by sitting.
Right.
I get that you were losing games. I do. And you want to win games at the NHL level. But I think these kids have to figure out how to win and do what the coach wants. Where if he wants to lock down a game, then I think they have to figure out how to lock down a game. And Konechny's still early in his career, and Patrick's way early in his career. And so, I was on TSN Winnipeg today, and they asked me, is there any NHLer that I think could get flown in last minute, parachuted in is the way they used it, to the World Juniors? And I said, yeah, Nolan Patrick. I think that's the guy they should do it with because, no offense to Jordan Kyrou, really good player, Nolan Patrick would be head and shoulders above him and would really help the team, but would also, I think, really help his confidence. And I think that's a key thing.
And there are indicators that Tyson Yost is going to be they're going to let him go for the World Junior for Colorado.
Well, that's a big deal if they do.
Yeah, but I agree.
Yost, Mike, we went through this. Remember?
I'm sorry.
I don't want to get mad.
Well, okay, whatever.
I asked him specifically in an interview. He said Jost.
Jost? Okay, Tyson Jost. So he may go to the World Junior and he can enjoy some chicken wings in Buffalo. But no, okay. You wrote an article for Sportsology, Russ, that of a secret Calder candidate that I was a little surprised by, but
I don't think it's a secret. I think it's just being overlooked because with the bright light of Brock Besser and Matthew Barzal and Clayton Keller, I think people are forgetting Malcolm Subban has 6 wins. He's 13th in the league in save percentage. He's got a .923 save percentage, and he's doing it with an expansion team. Like, this is something where, if we all remember, go back to that first game that Malcolm Subban played for the Bruins, it was bad. And there were so many people after that, when he got in again and looked bad, was like, oh, man, this guy, he's never going to be anything at the NHL level. But again, he was in the 2012 draft. At 23, it does start to click for a lot of goalies. And so now he's getting regular playing time. He's won a couple games in a row. And when I looked at the situation, I said, you know what? I looked at ESPN, and I had some fun with them because they have the predictor, right, for goals and all those things. ESPN predicted he would be 43-14 with a .923 save percentage. If that's the case, he would win the Vezina and the Calder.
Come on.
I know. And I said that's not going to be the case. But he would win both, right, if that were the case. But it just shows you the pace that he's on right now and where right now he deserves the recognition. He is going to possibly face PK tonight if he's not ill. He had an illness, so he didn't practice, Malcolm. So he might be facing his older brother tonight. But here's a key thing. I accidentally uncovered while looking at this how amazing 2012 was for a goalie draft. And here's who we had in the goalie draft. And I think I found an anomaly that I don't remember ever occurring before. But in the first 62 picks, you had Andrei Vasilevsky 19th, you had Subban 24th, you had Dansk 31st, Stolarz 45th, and Korpisalo 62nd. They've all played at the NHL level. I can't recall a draft where that many goalies in succession all played. So you had that going for it, right? And then if you skip down to 83rd, you got Matt Murray. And if you skip down to 87th, you got Frederik Andersen.
Who was a redraft. He was originally selected by I think Carolina in 2010. Yeah. In the 7th round, and then he came back in the draft and got
and if you slip down to 130th, you've got Connor Hellebuck. And if you slip down to 163rd, you have Linus Ullmark, who I think will see some more time this year.
Yeah. Russ, did you mention Frederik Andersen already?
Yes, I did. If you slip down to 179th, Marek Mazinik, who has gotten some time, Rangers re-signed him. Yeah. If you slip down to 184th, Mark Langheimer has actually played a game.
Marek Langheimer.
Marek, sorry. I said, that's a mistake on my part. And then if you go to 198th, Joakim Ryan for San Jose. Like, this is 12 goalies that have seen NHL time. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, that is, and it's funny because
there might be one or two more, believe it or not.
Murray was overlooked in the Rookie of the Year last year. I mean, he won a Stanley Cup before he qualified for a rookie, sort of like I think.
And I think that was a big reason why.
Right, sort of like Ken Dryden, because Ken Dryden, remember, he won a Stanley Cup and then he was still a rookie technically.
Yes.
I think goalies are always overlooked unless I think I may be wrong. I think the last Rookie of the Year goaltender might be Tom Barrasso. 1983. You know, who I know he won the Calder, but I can't remember a goaltender after that. Carey Price didn't win the Calder as a rookie.
Hold on, I think there was.
Yeah, while you're looking that up, I'll just let me touch on the games for Friday night. Here we have 5 games tonight. Blue Jackets.
Steve Mason, 2009. I knew there was something.
Okay.
That's it.
There you go. Hey, there you go. You should have gotten that, Peter. He's on the Jets roster.
I know. Should have known.
Sorry, Peter.
No, it's okay. I was trying to think.
No, I mean, has there been any update on Mason? Because I know that it was a concussion.
He's skating. He could be back soon.
Okay. There is
to pass the next protocol, and I would suspect that if he does, he'll be back next week sometime.
I mean, we have the trade freeze coming up December the 19th, except for the Calgary Flames, because we know Brian Burke likes to put the trade freeze there a little early.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of speculation about the goaltending situations throughout the league, Pittsburgh, Florida, a few other places. I find it hard to believe that teams won't make that move before the trade freeze, because once that goes into effect, it goes into effect for, I think, a little over a week. It'll be after Boxing Day. And if you don't have enough goaltending at that point, you're stuck. I mean, what are you going to do? So, maybe Hutchinson gets moved, maybe guys like Eddie Lack and Hammond, and there was some talk about one of the Leaf backup goaltenders, with the guys down in Toronto with the Marlies, either Sparks or Calvin Pickard being available. So, and there's been some talk about Buffalo goaltenders as well. I mean,
I just brought up Tokarski yesterday. He's probably could be in the mix too.
And with Allmark down in Rochester, that opens up. I mean, the Sabres are clearly not going to be a playoff team. Chad Johnson is a very good veteran backup who can play more than a regular amount of games.
You know what? Yeah. Just one thing to think about with Johnson is he's kind of like the same case as Peter Budaj was a number of years ago.
Yes.
You know what? He's a capable guy. He's had some ups, he's had some downs. Went and spent time, and it was with Winnipeg. They spent it in the AHL. Mm-hmm. Comes back. The guy's got a career now in a good situation.
Yeah, and he has proven in two places, Peter. In Buffalo, when I think it was Miller that got hurt, or it may have been after Miller was gone, but I think it may have been when it was Enroth, that he played a lot more games than normal and played.
I think it was Enroth, actually.
Yeah, I think it was Enroth. I think Enroth got hurt, but then he goes to Calgary, and when Elliott played like Brian Elliott, they played him as the number one, and he played well for a while. He basically saved their season until Elliott got back on track, and then Elliott they went back to it.
Last night, Mike, he won his 200th career game.
I know. I just don't trust the guy. I don't think he's a number one goaltender.
I don't trust any goalie. I mean, that's just the way it is. Like, I mean, you want to believe, but at no point do I ever.
You sound like Bill Belichick and kickers. Like,
I heard this discussed on a show, and I want to bring it up to you guys, because you describe someone as a number one goaltender or as a premier starter in the league. How many guys in the league are premier starters in terms of goaltenders? I mean, is it 10? Is it 5? I mean, in the East, you can say Price, you can say Bobrovsky, you can say Lundqvist, but maybe he's a little long in the tooth. Mm-hmm. I mean, how many are there? Because is Tuukka Rask, because they got, Russ. I mean, is there a way to quantify it, or to know how many there are? I mean, I think Quick is.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to quantify it. I think, but there's less than there used to be. Let's go with that.
Yeah, I mean, there was an argument whether Frederik Andersen is a, and I don't think he is. I mean, I think you have to have a. I mean, I think he's a very good goaltender. I think you have to have a level of consistency over a number of years,
and in the playoffs too.
And he's had, he played well last year. He played well on Anaheim's run a few years ago.
For all intents and purposes, though, he's a top 5 goalie in the East. For all intents and purposes, okay. So what does that mean? I think that means to me that this is the thing about goaltending, that is voodoo, right? And we agree that he's a top 5 goaltender in the East, but you're like, I don't know if I can trust him yet. Well, if you can't trust a top 5 goaltender out of 16 teams, right? Who can you trust?
Well, here's the thing. All right.
And that's what's so frustrating about goaltending.
But if we rewind the tape, a much younger Peter Tessier didn't trust Connor Hellebuck.
Yeah.
But now you have to, because he's the reason you are where you are.
Well, Hellebuck's exactly, and Anderson, I think, is given reason, particularly last season too, that you can trust him. Right. And
I think he's trustworthy. I just don't think he's
the Leafs and Jets are battling for 13th if they don't have Hellebuck and Anderson playing.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, right? Anderson might not be the 6th best goaltender in the Metro. If you Holtby, Murray, Lundqvist, Bobrovsky, Schneider.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
you know.
So then maybe he isn't top 5 in the East, or maybe is he top 5 in the East because of the record of the team and his record?
That's not all about. It's not
No. I think now the argument against him being top 5 in the East is because for 2 consecutive years he has started off the season the first month being extremely subpar, save percentage under 900.
Yeah.
You know, and if it wasn't for the team scoring like crazy, he probably would have had a losing record.
Look, if it were all about wins, Cujo would be in the Hall of Fame, right? So I mean, you have to look at it for a lot more than that.
Well, I think he should.
Of course you do, Mike. We know that.
Okay, let's talk about the schedule here briefly. The Blue Jackets play the Devils, Rangers, Capitals. So we get this chance to see whether Kevin Shattenkirk can make Barry Trotz eat his words. The Golden Knights at the Predators, and you did mention before, the Subban brother matchup. Jordan Subban, the third Subban brother, did get traded last night, a 1-for-1 deal between Vancouver and Los Angeles for Nick Dowd. I think that probably has something to do, Russ, with the injury to Horvat. They wanted maybe some depth up the middle.
They got a guy who could win some faceoffs, but I got to tell you something. Now, Jordan Subban's not the biggest guy, right? He's 5'9". But he has offensive ability, and he is a really good athletic defenseman. Mm-hmm. Boy, they were shopping heavy on that one. Like, that's one where, you got what you needed. So you ran out and got your holiday gift last minute, but you could really get crushed in the long term with this one, especially with the way the Kings know how to work with young defensemen, and they've been proven to be able to almost. If you think about it, there's almost not a defenseman that you could think of drafted in the first round or even the second round with the Kings that has not gotten an opportunity and looked pretty good for them, even if it took 5-6 years.
Right, and you potentially down the road could pair him with a bigger defenseman like a Forbort or something like that, and
Forbort's that guy, right? Because he finally made it, and he looks good. So they're like the defense whisperers. They really are. So this could hurt them.
Yeah, and I was a little surprised because I remember there being a lot of talk early in the year about Subban playing in Utica and playing well, and then
he's off to a bad start this year. I don't know if it's injury. He's only got 6 points or something. So
and it's got to say something that that Travis Green was the Utica coach. Now he's up in Vancouver, and they moved Subban, so maybe he wasn't on board with him, and they have Ulevy in the organization. So, but we'll see. But Golden Knights and Predators. The Sabres play at Chicago, so the 7-17-4 Buffalo Sabres. And the Minnesota Wild at the Anaheim Ducks. So we have 5 games tonight, and I know that in Toronto that it's the doubleheader this week at Pittsburgh on Saturday against Sidney Crosby, and then coming back on Sunday and Austin Matthews facing Connor McDavid. So that will be a nice little doubleheader for the Leafs. Any highlights for the weekend, Peter?
Or hockey?
Just for yourself or for the Jets?
My youngest son's a basketball fanatic, so he's got a playoff game tomorrow in his fall league. He's got his social wrap up for the team right after that, and then I'm already wearing my blue and green for the Seahawks visiting the Jaguars on Sunday because if they're going to do anything, they got to run the table to finish the season. So. And for you in Buffalo, I will say, I hope you're enjoying Mr. Hauschka as a kicker because Walsh is killing the Seahawks.
He's like the only good thing that the Bills acquired this year. He's like he's nails from 50, even 55 yards out. He's really great. But Russ, Bills Colts at New Era Field, the building that we'll be at later this month for USA versus Canada. They're selling tickets on StubHub for $4.
No.
Wow. But that's a trap game. That's one if you're Buffalo, you're a little worried. That could be a trap game.
It's a trap game because they can lose every single one of them.
I'm looking forward to the Jet game. They're playing Denver for a couple of reasons I'm looking forward to. First one is Robbie Anderson didn't finish practice yesterday, but he is playing. So he's been catching a couple touchdowns a week, it seems. So they really need him. But there's also some payback for Denver. In 1998, the Jets made it to the AFC Championship game and lost with a 10-0 lead in that game. There was some guy, Terrell Davis, and yada, yada, yada. And they didn't get to the Super Bowl. And so I'd love them to bash the brains in of the Denver Broncos. John Elway almost hit me once. with his SUV. That's true.
You know what?
He didn't almost hit you with his teeth, did he?
No, with his SUV, he was backing out of someplace pretty quick, out of the whatever they were calling the place where the Avalanche play, because we were going in there for a radio show, and he came flying out of a
McNichols Arena.
Yes.
Good. So. Hey, and Russ, anytime the Broncos lose, an Angel gets a set of wings.
I agree.
It's a thing of beauty.
I agree.
And every time the Bills lose, they lose.
And I'm happy the Yankees lost Ohtani. Thank you.
Because
Mike said it was a guarantee.
I did not say it was a guarantee. Mike Francesa said it was a guarantee.
I knew it was a Mike.
Hey, what's the story with Francesca now? What's going on here with this whole thing? He's
leaving. He's out of radio next week.
Well, no, he's leaving WFAN.
Right.
I think it's December 15th. But the rumor out there is that and he can't announce any future intentions until January. The rumor is he might be going to satellite radio and doing shows with Mad Dog, because he could probably arrange a schedule there where he could work 2 or 3 times a week and probably make as much money as he does on terrestrial radio. So I will bet you anything that's what ends up happening. But I don't have.
Here's a rumor, and this would be awful.
Okay.
Mike Francesa and Bill Simmons. Oh,
they like each other. You know what?
I don't care if they like each other. I don't like the combination.
That's not out. And honestly, when Mad Dog left, the guy that he wanted to get as the guy to replace him was Bill Simmons.
But interesting enough, there's a rumor going around that, and until his contract extension was just announced, that Bob McCown was maybe courted for that position.
I joked about that today. It was
That's
like because Bob McCown just announced a 3-year extension with the Fan, and I think he's going to probably retire after that. But maybe as a challenge. I mean, it would be tough for McCown. McCown is so ingrained in Canada and in Toronto.
You know who I liken that to? And now I'm going to hope I remember his name.
Not Pete Franklin.
Pete Franklin, when he came in from Cleveland, man, it was like coming into another planet.
And and Francesa was the replacement for Pete Franklin.
I know.
Yeah.
Pete Franklin came in, Peter. It was just, and that was in the height of sports talk radio, or not the height, the beginning rather, of sports talk radio. And he came in like he was Mr. Big Shot, and he knew everything about football, and he'll teach New Yorkers about football.
Yeah, and he was hated in New York.
Oh,
so.
Do you have to be like Russ? Do you have to be a New Yorker or a at least say tri-state sort of entity to have that kind of credibility to manage a New York station that way?
You almost do. You don't have to be, but you have to be mindful that if you walk into that environment, that you don't piss all over it. And that's what people.
Right. Carton wasn't a New Yorker, was he?
I think he was from Philly, actually.
Yeah, that's not
close. That's close.
Yeah, but okay, guys, great show. I hope everybody has a happy weekend.
And I'm not watching the Mike Francesa documentary. Newsday asked me to on Twitter, and I will not waste my time. Thank you.
For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, who's not going to waste his time, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.